Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome into another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host for the evening, Matt High, joined by Joe Capozzi and Rich Kopech. How we doing tonight, fellas?
Not too bad. Don't let this fool you, everyone. This is not mine. This is Chris's, but this is our Heroes of Fantasy Football Dynasty trophy. So I figured, while I have it before I give it to him, I will put it in the background. But otherwise, pretty good. Getting ready to get into these rookie mock drafts. I'm excited for this class. How about you,
Yeah,
Rich?
you
How
would
doing?
be.
Oh, I'm
Since
very excited.
You have like every pick in the first 5 rounds, but hey, it's all worth it.
I'm not doing that great, I guess, just because I have no picks. So, it's me just watching everybody else enjoy this. But I have one first rounder and one dynasty, so I'm interested to see what player lands to me there. It's going to be an interesting offseason, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of storylines that we got to pay attention to, and the Justin Fields thing. There's so many. There's gonna be a lot of time before we kind of get what's going on, but this is always fun. This is probably one of my more favorite times of the year to talk about these rookies and see what could be, because not every rookie's going to work out, and in fact, a lot of them don't. It's really navigating situation, player themselves, and just what transpires. Uh, this is a little bit early, but this is also, we've had a little time to look at just the rookie film. So this will be a good way to kind of, because we haven't really talked about any of these together either. So I'm curious to see how you guys feel about some of these guys that I may be high or low on. We'll see if we feel the same. So today's episode, we're going to be doing a rookie mock draft for the 2024 class. We're going to be doing a 12-team Superflex half PPR, and this will be a 2-round draft. So we're going to do Joe's got the first pick, then Rich, then myself. We'll just kind of keep going through the first 2 rounds, talking about the players, where we view them, and if we're high on them, low. We'll have a little bit of a discussion. We will be doing more episodes, more mock drafts, obviously, because there's a lot of things that are going to change between now and then. We have the combine coming up, the NFL draft itself. So some of these things are going to shift. So it'll be kind of fun to see, to go back on the next mock drafts to see where we thought these guys are going to go, and see how much it changed. As you can probably tell, I'm still dealing with this wonderful cough. COVID's not fun, but working through it. So you guys ready to do a little bit of mock?
Let's get in it.
Yes, sir.
Ready.
So let's do this on Sleeper. This is our preferred platform. So without further ado, Joe, you have the first overall pick. Are you doing what everyone is probably going to do?
If it wasn't Superflex, it'd be a very different answer, but purely based that it's Superflex, I have to take Caleb Williams. He's just, when you say generational talent, they don't come around that often. I've seen many articles on him. I mean, look at his sophomore year, 2022. He won the Heisman, put up record-breaking numbers. People said he looked Mahomish, which is a huge compliment. Of course, he took a step back in 2023, but he set such a high bar in 2022, and then he lost Jordan Addison for 2023. I mean, of course, you're not going to reproduce those record-breaking numbers, but he's shown that he is super athletic talent, putting up big runs, making great throws. You got to take him in a two QB league.
Now, Rich, I may be a little bit lower on Caleb. I still think he's going to be a good talent. I have seen some things in his game that kind of worry me a little bit, similar to how I viewed Bryce Young going into last year. Nothing that can't be, I think, coached out of him. But he does tend to play hero ball a little bit and hold on to the ball just a little bit too long, which I think that could be coached out of him. Have you seen anything on Caleb that you're worried about, or are you just Caleb's 101, don't think about it?
No, I definitely would have to agree with you. The hero ball, as you just mentioned, is something that I think you have to pay a little bit more attention to. I mean, it's a more, I think, processing thing with him. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, and don't hear what I'm not saying. I think he definitely is the overall, the generational talent, I guess, that's coming out of this class as far as in the quarterback position. But no, yeah, there is a little bit of concern, I think, for me about the time that he's had in the pocket previously, in the college setting. This is going to be now a whole new ball game, so it's going to be something to look at how he's going to handle NFL pressure. And I think if he's all right with it, then then okay, great. But I've heard this story before, generational talent. So I am a little worried, a little more skeptical this time around. So that, and also that 2022 to 2023, the decline there a little bit in the stats and all that. It is. I understand didn't have Addison, but not something you really want to see. So two little knocks there, but of course, still for me, it's he's definitely in the 1.1 or 1.2 range. I can make the case for the next guy that I am going to talk about, as I do have the 1.2, but we'll get there in a second.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was more he's really good. Like watching his film, you could tell he's a good quarterback. I just don't think he's going to come out and do what Stroud did this year. So I feel like that you might be setting yourself up for just manage expectations. But I do think he's going to hit in the NFL. So don't want to dwell on it too much. I mean, it's hard to poke holes in the top couple guys here, but it's part of the
a lot of
part of the
hate
process.
for my pick, huh? A lot of hate for the 1.1. It's a lot of Caleb haters out here.
It's not that I don't like him. I
Jeez.
just think value wise, I think I like some of the other quarterbacks
Over
close
Caleb
to him.
Williams?
Not over, not
You're
over,
out of your mind.
not over, but close to. So it's kind of like a consolation prize type thing. But
Close to. Get out of here.
we can move on here. Who's up for you, Rich?
So with the 1.2, for me, it's pretty easy. I'm going to take well, I don't know why the app's not letting me take Marvin Harrison, but it is my pick. Oh, nope, he's added to my queue.
That's
Since
because
it's
I
not
do
my
it.
turn, I guess.
I manually
Oh,
add the
so
draft.
I wish I knew that ahead of time. Apologies. So Marvin Harrison is definitely my pick. For me, I honestly can see the Jamar Chase type of path that he can get on to go with. And with that, I mean, it's hard to really pass up on a guy like that, as he can be a very pivotal player in your dynasty team for years and years and years. I mean, you look at the year that Jamar came out, you had Trevor Lawrence there, who everybody still was claiming to be generational talent. Now, I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence isn't a great asset to your team as opposed to some other quarterbacks, but there probably is some players that are kicking themselves for not taking Jamar over Trevor Lawrence in that circumstance. And I mean, it's yet to be seen, obviously, and I'm just kind of comparing it to other players here, but just for what it is and for what we expect from Marvin Harrison Jr., um, I expect great things. I mean, he should be the wide receiver one right away for, I presume, Kyler Murray. So I like that. And, I could definitely see the reason for taking him over Caleb, even in a super flex.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be so much fun to watch. I have seen a few people take him at 101 over Caleb. It's just hard in a super flex. It might be the right call eventually when we look back 2 years from now, but it's just hard to do. So if you have the 102, you're in a pretty good spot. You get whoever the person in front of you passes on, which is great because both guys should be immediate studs. So do you have anything to add, since you're probably going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. on your dynasty team as well, Joe?
He's great.
Excellent analysis.
Great,
That's all you
great
need.
addition.
That's all you need for him.
I mean, he's 6'3", 205 pounds. He's
No,
put up 28
it's true.
TDs over 2 seasons. I mean, what do you
Yeah,
not
it's
like
great.
about him? Yeah, he's
Exactly.
He's great.
He's great.
Carry on.
I've seen
Carry on.
people already have him ranked as the dynasty wide receiver 4,
Yeah,
which
he's high.
is
It's
wild.
crazy.
I could see it. I mean, we'll
These two
see.
players, I would consider the two S tier players of the draft. I think the top 7 picks of rookie drafts right now are both S and A tier players. But once you get out of the 1.7, I think that's when we start going to like more B tier. Not, don't get me wrong, they're still great players, but compared to like A and S tier players, they're a little less hyped upon.
Yeah, I feel like this draft, this class takes somewhat of a dip once you hit a certain part. So we'll see if we agree as we go through. So my pick here is going to be Drake May. Now I know this might be somewhat bullish, but I do think going back to last year, it was Caleb and Drake May who's going up 101. Caleb kind of started taking over, but I was watching Drake May's film and I saw a lot that really impressed me. He gets a little flustered under pressure at times, which that will come, I think, with a little bit of coaching and as he gets acclimated to the NFL. But he's not afraid to throw the deep ball. He gives his wide receivers a chance, and I think he has enough arm talent and accuracy to really make a difference on your team and on your fantasy team and the NFL team. He's also got some legs. He's not afraid to rush. There were a lot of times where I saw multiple occasions where he was really waiting for the play to develop, letting his playmakers kind of run their routes to through their progression, and he threw it in a spot where only they can get it, which I think is a really really good attribute to have as a rookie quarterback. Um, I think he could be a franchise guy. To me, he kind of reminded me a little bit of a larger version of Drew Brees with legs. He's probably going to be the 2 or 3 quarterback off boards in dynasty rookie drafts, but in the NFL, he might be number 2. So to get this guy at the 103, perfect consolation prize, Drake May for me.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you there. I mean, he would be number 1 overall if Caleb wasn't in the class, probably. And you got to look at it. He had a
Agreed.
little bit of a lackluster 2023 season, but you also got to put in perspective. He got a new offensive coach. He had an ankle injury. He lost Josh Downs. So I mean, that was a lot of contributing factors. But over 2 campaigns, he still ran for 1,147 yards and 16 touchdowns. That's pretty impressive for someone that is also extremely deadly in the air, throwing 38 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. That's extreme. Turnovers is something I think a lot of NFL coaches look at, and I think Drake May is excellent and will be a top 5 NFL draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should be.
See, for me, I have a little bit of a situation where I think I lean the Jaden Daniels side more so than Drake May. I like Daniels' game more than I like Drake May's game. And also with the matter, it's just I think it's really going to come down to who gets picked where. I mean, Washington and the Patriots are both um, questionable landing spots, but I think I'd like the player that goes to Washington more than I like the player that goes to the Patriots. So, and from what I understand or from what I see so far, seems that we're going to see a lot of Drake May going to the Patriots. Or from what I've seen so far, at least. And so, just for that reason, I think I'd lean Jaden Daniels in later on. But for now, I'm all right with you taking Drake May as I do. I think he can, definitely be a rough, tough player.
Yeah, I think the top 4 to 5 picks are all going to be the same guys.
Top
They
7.
just might be in a different order.
Yeah, top 7. I feel like the top 7 in almost every mock draft, all the same guys, maybe in a few different orders, but they pretty much have solidified themselves. We'll see if that continues in our draft since we haven't spoken about these, and these are all coming up. But I guess I'm on the clock, and to go to Richie's point, especially in a super flex league, I'm taking Jaden Daniels here. He's looked Lamarish with his rushing capabilities. He's rushed for 3,307 career yards and 34 rushing touchdowns, which for a fantasy aspect is a lot of fantasy points, which makes me very excited to have him on my team. I feel like he's done enough to be an immediate starter for wherever he goes. He's supposed to be a top 5 draft pick in the NFL draft. We'll see if that stays true. But yeah, like Richie said, big fan of Jaden Daniels. He's been moving up the draft boards consistently, and I've seen him as early as pick three three over Drake May, or if the latest four. He's definitely solidified himself as a top 5 fantasy draft pick.
I've also seen some people rank him as their quarterback 1
All
on the
right,
class
that's stupid.
in NFL, not fantasy,
Yeah.
but I think that's a little bit rich for my blood, but he does have the rushing upside. You know, he was I don't want to make all these crazy comps, but he kind of reminded me a little bit of Kyler Murray, the way he kind of sits in the pocket and then rolls out in some instances where he has decent vision down the field, but he uses his legs to kind of open up the rest of the field and make those throws. So him and Drake May, I feel like, are going to flip flop a couple times in a lot of drafts. So like either one, I think would be okay. I personally just have a little bit more worries on Jaden Daniels versus Drake May. I think in today's NFL, a team might like Drake May's attributes a little bit more than Jaden Daniels, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
So who you
Agreed
got
with
next,
that.
Rich?
Yeah, so mine it's really a question between, you know, what position are you trying to fill more? I think because there's two players I'm comfortable with taking with the 105, both, and that's between Malik Neighbors and also Brock Bowers. Apologies if I'm saying last names wrong, but I like the talent or the prospect that can turn into a top 5 dynasty tight end in Brock Bowers. I hear just from the woodwork that he's uh, one of the better tight end prospects in recent history. So him, from what I understand, going to the Chargers could be very good from what from what we see going on right now with them. So I like that pick. Um, Now I don't know if necessarily if I'm picking, as if this is my one team here, but just for the sake of going with what my gut feel is, I'm going to stick with Malik Neighbors as the 105. I think tight end is just a little too rich for me to take this early, and Malik Neighbors, from what I've read and what I hear, he's more closer to Marvin Harrison than he is the wide receiver 3 in the class. So I mean, could hit on a receiver like him. I could definitely see it happening. Top 10 is what I hear or what I read. So landing spot is going to be huge with him, but from looking at his athletic profile, he's freakish, to say the least. So you like to see wide receivers like that, and hopefully he can just get a little bit better with separation, and if he can clean up that, I think he can really be a problem on the field. So.
Yeah, I saw him. He could be used anywhere on the field, which is something NFL teams are going to love. Like coaches are going to love him because you can put him in the screen game, you can put him outside, you can put him in the slot, and he just makes plays. That's just what he does. Like you said, a little bit of separation issues that I saw as well, but I mean he has yards after catch ability, kind of like Debo. So like getting into that, if you get him in space, just watch out because he could very easily take something to the house.
Yeah, and he's such a tremendous talent. And if Marvin Harrison wasn't in the draft class, he's easily a number 1 draft pick wide receiver. It's just unfortunate that Marvin Harris is also in the draft class for him, being such a generational talent he is. But Malik Neighbors is the real deal, and expect to be a top 6 NFL draft pick.
All right, so I'm up here now, and this is where I'm not really buying into some of the hype on Brock Bowers. Now I'm going to be a little bit lower on one. Tight end rookies are a little bit harder to judge. I know we had Sam Laporta come out as a rookie tight end, fantasy tight end 1, but typically that doesn't happen. So we had Kyle Pitts, and you're still kind of waiting for that as well. It's just it gets hard to judge some of these guys. So That was going to be my pick, but I'm going to pivot now to who I think is an excellent wide receiver, is Rome Odunze. I think that's how you say it, but I apologize if it's not. But, excuse me. Overall, I really like the tape. There are some struggles when pressure at the line. So, like, if he gets hit at the line, it takes him a little bit to kind of get back on track. But his routes were pretty clean, which is one of the things I really look at. I want to look at your route running because if you run really good routes, you're going to be open and the quarterback is going to throw you the ball. It's that simple. You don't have to overanalyze it. He does need a little bit of work on him. He can run a little bit crisper ones. He has some yak appeal, nothing overly exciting, but I've noticed he was very good at tracking the ball deep, making adjustments on his footwork and kind of going where the ball is going to go. He should be a very solid wide receiver. He's probably going to be more of a slot type guy, to get some mismatches on the defensive side of the ball. But overall, I think he's a really good prospect. In the right situation, he could be one of these guys that we're talking about next year as one of our biggest risers in Dynasty.
Yeah, I like that pick a
Well,
lot, Matt. I've seen
yeah.
a lot of reports that he is exceptionally smart football wise. A lot of scouts are comparing him to Larry Fitzgerald. He's has a extremely high football IQ, with being able to adapt and react, which is a very good sign for scouts. And again, just unfortunate with the class he's in, because I could also see him being a number one wide receiver draft pick outside of this class with so much elite talent.
I haven't heard that comp, but I really like that. Now that you kind of say it, I'm thinking back to watching it. It did look a little bit
Yeah,
Larry-ish,
he's good.
but yeah, I mean, basically the rule of thumb with this draft, the biggest takeaway is it's loaded at wide receiver. There's a lot of these guys that if they were out last year, they probably would have been one or two. Definitely the year before, who knows? But it's a pretty good draft class if you need a wide receiver on your dynasty team.
Yeah, and I agree. And I guess I'm up here. So rounding out the class, and this is exact top 7 picks that I've seen in every mock that I've seen, every article I've read. Brock Bowers. I mean, there's only been 5 tight ends in the top 10 draft picks since 2000, and Brock Bowers should be one of them. I mean, this guy's an animal. And he even had tightrope surgery, and he played 26 days later. I mean, that's crazy. That's like unheard of. And he's tied. He's just, you see him out there on the field, and he looks electric. He looks like a tight end that's going to be, for the foreseeable future, dominant for catches, yards, and touchdowns. He led the team, or tied for the catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns across all 3 seasons. That's crazy. And I think a lot of people, I see a lot of predictions that he might go to the Chargers, and I kind of love that landing spot for him with Keenan, uh, questionable for the future if he's going to retire, and with Mike Williams' injuries, Quentin Johnson looking like hot garbage. I really like that landing spot for Brock Bowers, and if he goes there, I would be very excited to get him, especially this late in the draft. I've seen him go, like Richie said, anywhere from pick 5 to 7, and I'd love to get him in any of those 3 slots.
My only
Completely
thing with
agree with that.
Bowers, with Bowers, I've seen he's a little bit smaller than some of the other tight ends. Like he's not built like Kelsey. He's not of that size. My only worry is that he's used more as a pass catcher, which I know that sounds crazy, but tight ends, it's a hard position to go from college to the NFL, I feel like, because you need to learn blocking, the run scheme. It's not a position where you could just drop someone in and be like, all right, you're good. I know we had that with Sam Laporta, but like I said, it's not a knock on his talent because watching his film, he is an excellent receiver. You gave the stats of all the yards and touchdowns and everything, but in the NFL, I'm just looking and more fantasy. I personally don't like to take too many shots on tight ends especially in the first round, just because of the track record. I'm more of a stats guy, so when a lot of them don't hit, it's hard for me to get on board with one of these guys. But I do think that landing spot would be perfect for his skill set with Justin Herbert, with Jim Harbaugh coming in. I think that could be really, really good for him. So, Rich, you're up next.
Okay. Well, with my pick, looking at the two players I'm looking at, both wide receivers that are currently sitting there, is you have Troy Franklin from Oregon or Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. And so both of them, I think, are kind of pretty much the same to me. I don't know how I really feel about one way or the other yet. I still would like to take more time to look more deeply into their film. But looking at the two, I think I'm going to lean with Troy Franklin. Now, this is a big asterisk as to landing spot really matters here. But just from what I've been reading on him, he's fast, creates space, he has good ball skills. Um, I can see him having a role based off his size and everything. So 6'3" from what I'm reading. So I mean, it's still early, but I hear comps to Jordan Addison kind of deal. I mean, I don't know. I don't really like getting into comps, but nonetheless, I can see maybe a high-end wide receiver two output from this receiver here. So why not? I think at this point we're kind of just shooting and hoping. So.
Yeah, you kind of led it into it. At this point of the draft, usually back end first rounders, it's the hit rate isn't amazing with them, but in this class, I do think it's a little bit deeper and the hits should hit a little bit better. But what do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I like Troy Franklin a lot. He's definitely a first round guy for me. He's definitely. I feel like he should be a round one pick in the draft. Probably later, but still round one. Um, there's another guy like more than him here, but I do like Troy Franklin a lot, and he's definitely in my top five wide receivers or top five wide receivers for this draft class for sure.
Alrighty, so that makes me up here, and I'm between two players. One is a little bit of a reach, so for the purpose of this, I'll save him. But Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be my pick here. Wide receiver out of LSU. He's a tall wide receiver. He's got decent breakaway speed at full throttle. Took him a little bit to get there, so he's not like point A to point B fast. He's more, if you get him going, momentum will carry him and carry him through. I did see some minor inconsistencies in his game, but he's overall someone I'm going to be really watching and paying attention to in the draft season at the combine, especially just looking at where he lands. Because if he goes in the right situation, he could be someone that skyrockets in value. We could be talking about him a little bit earlier in the draft than right now. So he's more of a package player. I feel like he's going to be on 2 to 3 wide receiver sets and a little bit of separation issues, but he's got really solid hands. And if you hit him in space, he can create yards after the catch. Probably going to be a first round pick in the NFL draft, which is good draft capital for these guys, is going to make or break their value. Unless he goes to the Rams and he's a 5th round pick, because that means nothing. But he's just really someone I think in the right situation could be very, very good. What do you guys think? Is this the guy you were thinking about, Joe?
Yeah, I'm big on Brian Thomas. I think he's my 1.8 pick right after that top 7 A S tier that I talked about. You gotta give the guy props. You gotta think he played with Malik Neighbors, and he still led LSU with 17 touchdown catches and almost matched Neighbors in yards per catch. He had 17.3 and Neighbors had 17.6. I mean, that's impressive. Like Malik Neighbors is really good, and for him to lead in touchdowns and almost match Neighbors speaks volumes for him. He should be a round one pick. Again, like you said, landing spot's important, but I'd be very comfortable and very happy if I had a late first round pick. I'd be extremely happy with Brian Thomas, especially at the 1.8 what are we at? 1.9. I'd be very happy with him there. 100%.
Alrighty, so who's up next at the 110?
I think that would be me. Um, I think I'd have to go Bo Nix here. He's been rising on draft boards. He has everything that you want in a quarterback. It's just unfortunate. I think unfortunate with the draft class he's coming out in. I've seen a lot of comparisons of him to Justin Herbert with his throws. He looks like a very clean pocket passer. He might not be as run heavy as like Caleb or Jaden Daniels, but I think he's a very good quarterback. And I feel like he's going to get a start somewhere in the league here. And I'd be very happy with him at 1.10, especially in Superflex for a chance at a second starter somewhere down the line.
He was the guy I was between Brian Thomas and Bo Nix. Bo Nix is someone I've been rising on. I watched him a little bit later than the other quarterbacks. Like he was one of the lower guys that on my list. But I did really like his ability to extend plays. Like he could stay in the pocket, but he's mobile enough to kind of navigate through and dodge some tackles, and he's pretty accurate as a passer, which is something as a quarterback. If you're not accurate, you're not going to do anything. So some of his throws were a little bit shorter, which I gave him a little bit of a knock for. You know, I like a little bit more intermediate to deep routes, just for fantasy, especially because that's where all the points come from. But
Yeah.
he's also someone I did like how he threw the ball into a space and hit the receivers in stride. That is something that I think is an undervalued aspect because then they can create more yards after catch. It kind of makes the receivers better.
I mean, he only threw 3 interceptions in 2023. 3. So I'm just going to leave that out there.
Yeah, that's also good. If you don't turn the ball over, we don't want any more Jameis Winstons, even though that was so much fun. But for NFL, that's how you get out of a job real quick. For fantasy, it's wonderful because then you have to throw. But
so I think that would put Richie on the clock here at 1.11.
Yes, sir. Who we got?
The 1.11. Oh, decisions. I'll tell you. I'm between 3 players right now, and I'll break it down for you real quick. So, I mean, I think in Superflex, you have to always look at the quarterbacks. And obviously, we have one more quarterback sitting there that's kind of considered the top 5, and that's JJ McCarthy. However, in my opinion, JJ McCarthy is going to be sitting for the first year. So, at this point, as a later first round, typically these are players that these draft picks belong to players that are in win now situations, so they typically need players that are going to help them more so than to wait a year. Unless you're about to blow up your team, then hey, grab JJ McCarthy. So I'm going to help you by taking a player that I think will help you this season, and that's going to be a pick between the 2 wide receivers sitting there, between Keon Coleman and the other is Xavier Worthy. Now, these are opposite players as far as their body types and how they work the field, where Xavier Worthy is actually the fastest wide receiver, according to what I'm reading in college football at the moment. His speed is just crazy. So he has that 4.3 speed, which you love to see. However, he has the small frame size. Now that's going to give you the red flag, of course. But we just saw a player like Tank Dell perform well. So really depends on the player where he lands, right? However, looking at the other player in question, Keon Coleman, a big boy, 6'4", 215 pounds. Not the best dazzling stats in college, but I think overall this is a player that can help you right away. A big-bodied receiver, somebody that can be open or have just a higher jump to catch a ball from a quarterback in need. So I'm going to take Keon Coleman here as my pick with the big-bodied receiver that has apparently some Mike Evans to his game.
I did see that comp. He had a little bit of that. At the end of this draft, like the end of the first round, it's kind of hard. There's a lot of guys I want, right? I can kind of make an argument for, with Keon Coleman being one of them. He's going to be kind of situation dependent. I feel like he's one of the guys that is his value is going to be most determined by where he lands. Do you
You can
agree
say
with
that
that,
for a
Joe?
lot of
Or
these.
Yeah,
well, yeah,
I'm actually way lower on Keon Coleman than I guess Richie is. I have him in a lot of my rankings as towards the end of the second, but your other guy you mentioned, Xavier Worthy, I have him very high. So Keon, I mean, don't get me wrong, Keon Coleman's good. I've seen a lot of comparisons to T. Higgins on him, and he's not a bad wide receiver, but he did disappear in some games, so it's like
Yeah, true.
gotta see.
yeah. One of my
Yeah.
notes was that he seemed to be underutilized uh,
Hmm.
from the tape I was watching, where he wasn't targeted as much, which that could just be an offensive scheme thing, because he did seem to have strong hands and did well in intermediate areas of the field, had some drops, but that was my big takeaway. Seemed underutilized for his talents. So,
I agree.
but all right, so I'm up here and I'm just trying to think. So this is the last pick of the first round. So pick 112. I feel like I have to go quarterback here just because of super flex nature of this draft. And I don't want to. There's another guy here, but I do think it's a little bit of a reach. So I think we need a little bit more time, more information to make that move now. So I don't want to be all hot takey because I don't like doing that. Uh, so my pick here is going to be JJ McCarthy, and just coming off the championship winning game, Michigan State. Uh, he's not the most flashy quarterback, but he does have some good traits that will make him a valuable fantasy quarterback. Not afraid to run, but his run style is a little bit different. So it's similar to kind of how Jalen Hurts was this year. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but last year Jalen Hurts was, I'm going to go after the yards, kind of like Josh Allen. That running style where I don't care, I'm taking the hit, it's fine. This year it seemed to be more, I'll make the run, but I'm not getting hit. I'll run out of bounds or I'll slide. That seems to be kind of similar to JJ McCarthy's running style, which will be good for his longevity. Arm talent, I would say it's above average. Nothing crazy, but it's above average. He's not like the top guys we talked about at the quarterback position, but I did like how he had a tendency on his tight coverage throws to place the ball in a spot where only the wide receiver can make a play on the ball. So it wasn't really a threat for an interception. It was in a spot where they had to make a move. If they didn't, it was going out of bounds. It was going to be a throwaway. That was something I kind of liked. I don't know if you guys noticed that at all or if you care, but that's one of the things that kind of came out to me about his game.
Yeah, I like JJ McCarthy. I think he's probably one of the last quarterbacks. There might be like one more, but one of the last quarterbacks I can consider becoming a starter in the NFL, just based off of what they've done in college and their pre-draft ratings. But it'll be interesting to see if he gets first-round draft capital, or if he's more of a day 2 or 3 guy, like and sits behind a quarterback like Richie is predicting. So I guess we'll see where he ends up and how NFL teams value him.
Yeah. So, all right, let's do a real quick recap of the first round here. So, Caleb Williams went 101, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May at 103, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, Troy Franklin, Brian Thomas Jr., Bo Nix, Keon Coleman, and JJ McCarthy. Joe, you are up here on the second round.
And I'm going to take the first running back off the board. I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks. Uh, Jonathan Brooks tore it up once Bijan left. He was doing it all. He ranked top 10 in uh, yards after contact, which is great to see. The only downside on Jonathan Brooks, and which is why he is falling to the late first and early second, is he did tear his ACL at the end of the season. His week one status for 2024 season is now in doubt. But I think even if the 2024 season doesn't pan out and he doesn't play very much at all, he still has that talent, and I could see him leading a backfield in 2025. He's a tremendous player, and I think he's going to play a little in 2024, but he's definitely, I think, one of the best running backs in the. I think he is the best running back in the draft class, and even despite the injury, I'd be happy to take the shot at him um, early, early second, end of the first round.
100% agree. That the another takeaway with this class is there really is no Bijan. There's no Jameer Gibbs in this class. Like there's none of these really top end guys that you're clamoring for, which is why he's falling to the second round in our draft here. But I do think he leads the pack in the running back class in 2024. He was really shifty. I saw really good vision. Like he waits for the holes to open and then he hits it. Um, if he comes back right from this injury and goes to the right situation where, maybe he goes to the Bengals this year where they don't really need a running back because they have Joe Mixon and Chase Brown, but in 2025, it's a different situation. These are guys that these running backs I think are going to be more let's wait and see what happens. You have to be a little bit more patient with them, but I do think I really like that pick.
Yeah, I think the Bengals would be a tremendous spot for him.
So I'm gonna have to disagree a little bit here. I don't necessarily like Jonathan Brooks as the first running back. I don't like players that have suffered an ACL injury. Uh, I'm a little wary about them. Now, I mean, do what you want. That's not a problem. If you feel like, you kind of come back and then you can get him for a steal. I feel like maybe later on, that's great. But I don't know. For me, I'm going to also take a running back. I think I'm next, right? I am next. So my pick would be Blake Corum, actually, out of the three that are kind of rotating from what I see a lot. Trey Benson is also in consideration there, obviously, is the other one. But Blake Corum, I think, is just the safest pick as far as for the three of them. I like what I've seen as far as just him being a bruiser. If he gets into the right landing spot, just like we've been saying, I mean, the big asterisk on this show is really in the right landing spot. But for what it is, Blake Corum, I love his game. I love what I've seen. I mean, I don't know. For some reason, I just can't get him out of my head, just like landing back onto the Chargers and going right back to Harbaugh. And then we just see the utilization because he just knows his man. And I mean, if that happens, the sky's the limit, I think, with him. So, but I'm just kind of shooting ideas out there.
Where are you on Blake, Joe? Because I'm a little bit lower on him. Is he one of your top guys?
He's up there. I can't believe Richie with the ACL hate, man. I mean, Cooper Kupp tore his ACL. Do you hate Cooper Kupp?
I mean, he
But
does hate Puka, so
that's true. But no, I do like Corum. He's up there for me. I think I have a couple. There's another guy that I really like. There's actually, I think, two guys I really like over him in the running back position, but to each their own. I mean, I don't hate Corum. I just don't think he's early second for me.
gotcha. All right, so I'm gonna continue with the running backs now that we kind of said they're not that great, but you still take a shot. So I'm gonna pick Braylon Allen here, and this is someone where he doesn't have the biggest speed. He's not going to be the fastest guy, but he's someone that I think his opportunity could grow over time as he gets acclimated to the NFL team he's on. Um, Everyone has flaws, and what I liked about Allen was his pass protection, which doesn't score points in fantasy, unfortunately, but it will keep him on the field. And as he acclimates, gets a little bit more work, I think he could be one of these guys where he can start chipping away at who's ahead of him and start becoming more of a featured back in the NFL. So I don't think it's going to be right away. I think you got to kind of take the long approach here. But how do you guys view Braylon Allen? Because I think he was originally one of the more exciting prospects this year, talking about last year.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's in my top top 4 running backs for this class. Um, I think he should do well. I don't
I
have
have seen a
anything.
mock draft or two right now where he actually was the second running back off the board. So people are high on him.
All right, Joe,
You know what?
back up to you.
I think the one thing on Allen that kind of might put him down is that we didn't really see a lot of him as like a pass catcher, so that might be a little weary. But again, it's running back, so I don't think it's that bad. Oh man, who am I gonna take here? I can't believe he's still on the board, so I got to take Xavier Worthy. I'm surprised he fell this far. I have him as a late first round person for me. He earned the freshman All American honors in 2021. He caught 62 catches for 981 yards and 12 touchdowns. He looks like a good wide receiver, and he could see round one consideration in the draft. Again, landing spot is key, but I really like Xavier Worthy. Um, I think he just falls out of my top five wide receivers, right outside of Troy Franklin for me.
Yeah, I like that pick. He was I was kind of in consideration with him over Braylon Allen, but I just figured long term, I think Braylon Allen might be someone to take a shot on. So
Yeah, no, I'm going to agree with you there. Xavier Worthy, as mentioned earlier, just real fast. So why not take the chance? We've seen success with it in other players in recent history. So I believe I'm up then, right?
yes, sir.
All right. And so with that, I think at this point we're about, kind of in the middle of that second round there. So with it being super flex, I'm gonna just take the stab. I'm gonna go for the last one, and that'd be Michael Penix. Um, and that's just because it's, super flex, taking a chance at this point at a quarterback. Granted, I don't really have much faith in him as far as starting year one, but maybe in the right circumstances, we can, find the diamond in the dirt. So that's really the reason on that.
Yeah, and super flex, you take the shot. I know Joe, right around this time, was it a couple years ago, you took the shot on Mac Jones, who ended up being the starter. So you can find guys in this range in a super flex rookie mock, a rookie draft that ended up paying out. So good shot. So
Yeah,
for me
Jeremy
here,
was very mad.
I remember. Well, me and him had a conversation before you picked because he was going to trade me because I had to pick before you, and he's like, "No, I really didn't think you were going to take one because you had like 4 quarterbacks already." And I got a message afterwards saying I thought no one was taking him, but sure enough, you did. So
Yeah, I took the best available player. I mean, I don't know
yeah,
what he wanted me to do.
yeah. Which that's good thing you brought that up because that's a way I try to do dynasty drafts as well, like rookie drafts. Don't go in saying I'm taking this position or this player because if before we had some Xavier Worthy was dropping, you take the best guy even if you need another position. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through these drafts as well. So for me here, it's kind of hard. I'm going to stick with the running back position just because I like to take shots on these guys because their value can change more than I think the other positions in a very very short time frame. So I'm going to take the shot on Trey Benson here. Um, he's a little harder to project as far as the other running backs, but he, he looks some plays he looks like a really well-rounded running back, and then other ones he kind of looks a little bit more like a walk-on freshman, but I do think part of it will come down to coaching and he's pretty good when he gets open space. The hard part is I did see a lot of times where he was tackled at or behind the line of scrimmage, which that's not what you want to see in a running back. You want to see these guys finding the hole and hitting it hard. Um, with him, it didn't see that as much, but in the right spot behind one of these guys, I do think he could fit a specific role as kind of more of a flash in the pan type player. But if someone gets injured ahead of him, he could very easily start creeping up in value, or he just shows me wrong, proves me wrong, and is one of the top backs that we're talking about.
Richie, do you hate him too? He started his college career with a multi-knee ligament tear
Not a fan.
back in 2020.
It's just the injury hate. Richie, we're just going to change your name to Injury Hater.
Did you have the
That's gonna be
cold?
your
I
name.
hate you.
No sick people allowed in Richie's area. None on his
We're all
team.
healthy over here. We're all healthy.
Did you throw your back out last week?
All right. Let's not talk about me.
Just point out. Did you hate yourself that week?
Yeah. Joe, you're up.
Well, I'm gonna go in one of my favorite running backs in the class, Bucky Irving. Bucky looks like an elusive playmaker. I mean, he had a missed tackles on every 2.5 carries, which is pretty impressive. The one downside of him is he's a little undersized for a running back. He's only 5'10", but then again, we've seen little running backs do very well in the NFL, and he also has hands, so he can receive it. I'm excited to see where he goes, and I think that he should see some NFL play, and is an exciting fantasy asset for me.
Yeah, the size is his main knock, but watching him play, he looked pretty good. So I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I think he should be pretty good.
All right, Rich.
So with my next pick, I'm going to go with Devontae Walker. And it's just from the size speed combination, from what I understand, 6'3", 200 pounds. He's a good size for a wide receiver, and also has hit 23 miles per hour at top speeds. So we like it. I'm going to give it a chance. Why not? Devontae Walker.
I like
Yeah.
that pick too. So, alrighty. Let's go here with me. I'm up next. What are we at? The 2-9. So looking to pick these guys. I'm between two guys, and I'm going to go with Donnie Mitchell out of Texas. Looking at him, looks to be more of a specific package type player. He's not going to. There's not an immense amount of upside with him, but he had decent ball tracking. He looked pretty efficient on a little bit lower target total. He showed the ability to be a red zone guy too. That was where I watched him make touchdown after touchdown, which could provide him a little bit more upside than what I just originally expected. But I don't think he's going to be one of these guys where he's the focal point of your team. He's going to be your wide receiver 1 or 2. He's probably going to be more of a bye-week replacement flex player. But I do think he is going to have a couple of these weeks where he has a pretty impressive 2-touchdown game, or if his role is going to be a red zone wide receiver because he's a little bit bigger, I think he is one of those guys where it's worth taking the shot this late.
Absolutely. I like Mitchell. Yeah, he's good.
All right, Joe. Your last pick of this draft.
I'm between two guys here, but after some recent things I've learned about one of these guys, I'm going to go with the other one. So I'm going to take Lad McConkey here. He's an excellent route runner. It's unfortunate that he missed some time in 2023. He had a couple, I think it was back problems and ankle problems, but none of those are like lingering concerns, Richie. So don't worry, you don't have to hate him. I didn't tear anything, but he really impressed during the Senior Bowl practices, which is always good to see because that's the most recent activity we have on these guys is the Senior Bowl. So I think he should be a day 2 draft pick in the NFL draft, and he should probably, and especially in a half point PPR league or PPR league, depending on where his landing spot is, he should hold some good value, and I could see him being a solid wide receiver too on a lot of different teams.
Yeah, he's a name that I think is going to be rising.
Yeah, I actually going to take him, so I don't hate him. But yeah, so carrying on then to my next pick, I'm going to take at the back of the second round. Audric Estime or Estime, I'm not sure how you're going to pronounce that, from Notre Dame. A big physical running back who was very productive in his last collegiate year there, 2023, rushing for over 1,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, average 4.27 yards after contact per attempt. Good situation. He could definitely, get it going. Why not? So I'll take what I can there in the back of the second. And yeah, carry on. Hope for the best.
Yeah, I like that pick. I've seen a lot of comparisons that he's a tackle breaking machine.
Yeah, for a big dude, what my note
Yeah.
for him, for a big back, he has surprising speed. When he gets rolling, it's impressive.
Yeah, I think he should be one of the top running backs taken in the draft.
I agree. Yeah, he looks to me more of a north-south type guy. He's not going to be breaking out to the outside and running past people, but if he finds a hole, he's going to take it to the house because he's pretty patient. He's got good vision, so I really like that pick. That was actually going to be my pick. So thank you for stealing my dude.
No problem.
I'm glad neither of us have picks in our draft, so that doesn't happen because we don't have to worry about it. I don't think our fifth rounders are going to be fighting over those guys, but who knows? Could find the next Puka. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm going to go with Xavier Legette out of South Carolina as my last pick. Now, just because he is my last pick doesn't mean that he probably isn't going to be good. I could see him getting drafted into a pretty decent situation. I don't think he's going to be going to one of these top teams at the top of the draft or even the first, second, third round, but he has he's a pretty good blocking wide receiver, has some yak ability. When watching him, I saw they manufactured touches for him, which is something that's a little bit unnoticed in some instances where you like when college coaches look at their player skill set, like, all right, we're going to make sure we get you the ball somehow. And that's kind of what I saw with him. He seems to track the deep ball pretty well too. So he could be one of these boomer bust type guys on a weekly basis, but he was decent route runner, showed separation, and I think for a prospect, he's pretty polished. Maybe more so than some of these other guys, but needless to say, I was just impressed with him. Landing spot will be one of the things where if he goes to a deep threat quarterback, someone that likes to chuck the ball deep. Let's say he goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker's still there. I think that would be a good landing spot for him. So, what do you guys think about Xavier Legette?
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it pretty nicely. Of course, landing spot will be important. One note on our draft, and one player that I didn't take but I was very highly considering is Sanders, who's considered the tight end 2 in the class. I've recently heard that he was not. A lot of teams are not happy with him with how he approached Senior Bowl practices. He skipped a lot of meetings and had like a really bad attitude, and I think a lot of teams are a little bit down on him, which is kind of sad because he did show a lot of. I mean, he's no Brock Bowers, but he did show some promise to be a lead tight end in the league, and I think he, in a lot of mocks that I've seen, he's been mid second and the second round material, but in the light of the news, I decided to not take him. But I do like Legette as the end of the second round. I think this is a pretty solid mock draft that we just did. It looks pretty consistent with a couple others I've seen with a couple changes here and there. So I like it.
Yeah, I think this is a good exercise. Now a lot of this probably will change once we go through the combine, we get through a little bit more into the draft season. But like we said the past couple episodes, we're not going anywhere. We're going through all this. We're living this life, so we're gonna have things to say, different opinions. Some of the guys were a little bit higher on than others, but we're going to look at everything. Once we get more of the information, we're going to start throwing these guys in our rankings and just really see where we think these guys are going to go. So definitely keep tuning in. We're going to have a couple more shows focusing on the rookies, and we're going to look at some free agents and stuff. So all this stuff is going to make a wonderful, wonderful time. So definitely check this out. As always, you can follow us on X at the Heroes FF. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Please hit that subscribe button, click the bell. You'll get notified when new episodes come out. And leave us a comment if there are any picks that you like or any picks that you wish we made, different changes. Post your stuff there. We want to see it. Helps everyone in the fantasy community kind of see where other people are coming from. You might have had a guy where you wanted this because of this reason, but heard something else. That's what we're here for. That's what we want to do. It's a wonderful community. Let's just have fun. So if you guys don't have anything else to add, I think first mock draft is complete. We're ready to go. All right, everyone. We'll catch you on the next show. So long.
Later.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Heroes FF.